Chapter 2. Coming up with an idea. How can I possibly come up with a good idea? Surely all the good ones are already taken. Every business begins with an idea, so the first step in the 48-hour startup process is to come up with one. Usually, this is where people fall into a great black hole of endless dreaming and scheming. Some people can't come up with any ideas at all, and some come up with too many and can't decide which one to pick. One of my all-time favorite quotes comes from an American called Charles H. Duell. All the way back in 1899, when he was the U.S. Commissioner of Patents, he proposed that the patent office's days were numbered and that it ought soon to face closure. He proclaimed that everything that can be invented has been invented. Of course, more than 100 years later, his comment strikes us as farcical. When we think of all of the innovation and change that has happened in the century that followed his proclamation, it is clear that he was very much wide of the mark. But the funny thing is that this is exactly the type of comment I hear people making almost every day. If you watch programs like Dragon's Den, or the US version, Shark Tank, you can easily be given the impression that the qualification for a good idea is that it is unique, that it is hitherto something that didn't exist in the world. On these TV shows, eccentric and hopeful inventors unpack a suitcase inside which they have carried some kind of bizarre contraption, like a special mop that cleans underneath the fridge or a gadget for de-icing your car windscreen in seconds. Of course, these spectacles make for great television, but they don't actually tell the full story of what is and isn't a good idea. It is true that these hapless innovators are often quite correct when they say that their creation has never been done before, but, sadly, there's often a reason for why that's the case. What I have found in my career is that your idea doesn't necessarily need to be high-tech, although, of course, a lot of brilliant ideas are. A good idea definitely doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. What my experiences show is that it's possible to make something extraordinary out of something as ordinary as jam, beer, or coffee. USP is dead. TV entrepreneurship shows probably also give you the impression that good ideas ought to have a patent. They bleat on about how important it is to protect your idea. If you don't have a patent, someone else can just come along and steal your idea, the dragons shout as they shoot down another underprepared entrepreneur. In the real world, almost no businesses have a patent. Their ideas simply aren't innovative enough to be granted any kind of special protection from competition. And even those who do hold these certificates of monopoly over their ideas aren't really protected from much in the real world. If their idea is any good, someone will come along and find a way around their patent, or maybe even come up with a better solution to the problem altogether. So if I'm telling you that there is no need for your idea to be unique, surely this flies in the face of the conventional business mantra that every business must have a unique selling point. I don't know about you, but this principle was drilled into my head in business studies as if it were a fact of life, that all businesses only exist because they are doing something unique. When you stop to analyze this, you quickly realize that it is ludicrous. There are basically no unique businesses, except perhaps a few privileged government monopolies. All businesses have close competitors, easy replacements, copycats, and imitators. Even those who are doing something unique soon find their uniqueness eroded by other people's innovations. So how come any of them survive? Well, the truth is that it isn't by being unique that businesses succeed. It's partly by just being a little bit different, a bit better, a bit cheaper, or a bit faster. It is undeniably also about having the best business model. But more than anything, it's about having a unique story, a unique brand. Sure, when I came up with the idea of making Jam 100, percenter from fruit. This was a pretty novel idea. But it wasn't completely unique. And, as I'm sure you can imagine, many people have copied our concept over the years. But the one thing that people couldn't copy was my story. Now you might say, hey, it's easy for you to say that, you had this cute story of you and your gran. Well, it's nice of you to say so, but to be honest, I'm sure you also have a great story. About why you've decided to start your business, perhaps, or about who you are and what you believe in. The simple fact that you are a unique person is part of what makes your business unique, no matter how ordinary or commoditized its products might be. Look, if my dad had lost his job and started selling jam door to door in middle age, that would have been a story. And if my gran had started selling jam in her senior years, that would have been the best story of all. Whoever you are, there is some story you can tell, something you can say that makes your brand special. By bearing this in mind, you can take some of the pressure off yourself to come up with something completely different. Your idea doesn't need to be unique, it just has to be authentic. It has to come from the heart and be something about which you are passionate. With this in mind, you can start to look at the world as full of opportunity. If you don't have to do something unique, you can do anything. Same problem, different solution. If one thing makes you aware of the opportunity to reinvent even the most everyday of items, it's travel. I've been fortunate enough to travel to over 50 countries over the past few years, partly with Super Jam and partly for my own adventures. What you quickly realize when you start to travel is that so many of the things we consider to be expected or essential in our lives are in fact alien concepts to people who happen to live in other countries. Take some of the most fundamental ideas we have in Western society, that a toilet should be like a seat, with a lid and a flush. Or that food should be eaten with a knife and fork, sitting at a table. Most countries in the world view these fundamental things differently. I've been to places where they eat with their right hands, with chopsticks, with a spoon and fork, or just with a fork. I've been to places where I wasn't even sure how to use the toilet, or indeed whether I wanted to, so primitive was its design. And I can tell you, this isn't a cultural one-way street. In Japan they think our toilets are barbaric, and in India they think it's disgusting that we touch our food with our left hands. When you realize that even the most fundamental ideas about how we should live can be called into question, you realize that it is possible to reinvent anything and everything. And someone will. I like to imagine a person from 100 years in the future coming to visit us here today. There are some things they will no doubt be familiar with, like ring pulls on fizzy drink cans or shoelaces. But they'll be amazed that we don't yet have so many things they take for granted. The only difference between now and then is that some entrepreneurs in the meantime will come up with new ideas and products and, cumulatively, they will change the world. Hopefully by now, with all this talk of changing the world, I've convinced you that the world is full of opportunity, that things are only the way they are because someone else made them that way, and that you have just as much right to change them as they did. Your idea can be unique and transformative, but the chances are that it won't be, and that's okay too. United States of great ideas. If you do have the time to travel in search of a great business idea, almost certainly your best bet is to take a flight to California or New York, still today the world's epicentres of entrepreneurship. People literally travel from all around America and around the world to move to Brooklyn or to San Francisco, with an idea in their head and a MacBook under their arm. Anytime I've visited these places, I've seen restaurant concepts, food products, apps, and all kinds of things that I've figured could also work back home. And, no doubt, many of these American startups will make it across the pond to conquer Europe if someone here isn't quick enough to build their own version of the same concept. If you look at many of the great entrepreneurial success stories in Europe, for instance Innocent Smoothies, Ryanair, QuickFit, and BrewDog, they took their inspiration, at least in part, from what they saw happening in the States. In California they really lead the way when it comes to healthy food, craft beer, and even craft coffee. In all my business ideas I have taken at least some inspiration from what I've seen going on over there. For whatever cultural and historical reasons, our American cousins make for great entrepreneurs. They don't seem to have the same fear of failure as we do, and it would seem that they're born with a natural self-confidence that helps them put their best foot forward from the moment they're born. Whatever kind of business you are in, check out the American blogs on that topic. Talk to some Americans. Sign up for the magazines that are available over there. Purposefully go looking for a good idea to bring back home. You can usually assume that if you're working on a product, there's probably someone in America who has already sold 1 million of them. Rather than come up with your own way of doing things from a blank piece of paper, why not look at them as your free research and development department? They may have spent years working on this idea, testing different business models and designs. What you see now is the outcome of that. An idea that has been refined and tuned to succeed commercially. Why do the hard work all over again when you can simply stand on their shoulders? Don't be afraid of copying something that works. Sure, do it in your own way, but don't feel there's anything shameful about remixing other people's work. DJs have been doing it forever. Be second, first. One of the best pieces of advice in business someone has given me came from the Scottish entrepreneur Sir Tom Farmer, the founder of QuickFit. He believes in the philosophy of being second, first. And I think that this strategy of being a fast follower, whether you are taking inspiration from a business at home or abroad, is a great one. The importance of being first to market, the so-called first mover advantage, is dead. It was an idea initially popularized in the 1980s, that the first player in a given market would have some kind of inherent advantage from being first. Sure, there can be all kinds of advantages that come from this, the kudos, the media coverage, the head start on the competition. But when you think of the bigger picture, you realize that this doesn't tell the whole story of what it means to go first. A totally untested and new idea carries the most risk, and very few of those succeed. Studies consistently show that more than half will fail, some will survive, and a few will be a tear-away success. When you look at the companies that were the second in a given market, their odds are dramatically better. Shane Snow, in his excellent book Smart Cuts, believes that less than 10% of these companies fail. Wow, that means that someone who starts second is maybe 75% or less likely to fail. Think about it, the companies that go first are those pioneering spirits who head out into the hills in search of gold, digging as they go. Most of them won't find anything and some will, by which time they'll be exhausted from all of their earlier digs. The person who gets word of their find and comes running up the hillside with their shovel next is the one who really wins. The smart thing to do then, surely, is to look carefully for the new ideas that are working, figure out what they're doing well and what they're doing badly, then make your own version as fast as you can. If you can be number 2 before number 3 comes along, that's the best chance of success. The people who started first have probably blown all their money and energy on things that didn't work before they hit upon what does work. You, on the other hand, start from day one with a model that works, just by copying theirs. Now this might sound mean, stealing other people's ideas, but the truth is that there is no such thing as an original idea. Those people were no doubt inspired by someone else, who in turn was copying another idea. Sure, they might not see it that way, but of course it's the truth. Who to copy? So, just like at school, it's one thing to copy, so long as you copy the right person. If their answers are as dumb as yours, then you haven't much increased your chances of success. What you really need to do is establish quickly whether or not a new business that you come across on a blog or in the press is actually working. Find a way of seeing past the hype and the marketing spin. Coming up with your idea will, of course, be one of the defining decisions you make in this process. Which means that it is worth taking a methodical approach to coming up with an idea that has the best chance of succeeding. And that means finding a product for which there is definitely going to be customers. A classic place to start is to find out what the general size of the market is. If you can get this kind of information from a credible source like Mintel or the FT, great. It should take seconds. Crudely put, if the market is tiny and not growing, then it's pretty improbable you'll be able to make a business out of it, even a small business. Actionable ideas. Maybe your dream, like mine, is to sell your product to a retailer. But, if you want to have your first customer by Monday morning, you're probably going to need a business model that is based on making sales directly, since convincing retailers to stock your product can be an extremely lengthy process. It will typically take 6 to 12 months from pitching your concept to a major retailer for it to make it to the shelves. So, if you are creating a product, you should focus on either making it yourself in the beginning or taking pre-orders that you can pass on to a manufacturer once you have one in place. Making your product yourself or delivering your service personally in the beginning can be a very rich learning opportunity. Only if you make the product yourself will you get a true sense of what sort of process is involved, giving you an opportunity to come up with the best way of doing it. Selling directly to your first customers, whether your business is a physical product or not, will give you the perfect opportunity to learn about how best to sell it, right from the coal face. The closer you are to your customer, the easier it is for you to learn what they like and don't like about your product and to continually make changes, allowing your concept to evolve very quickly. Going into this process with a willingness to make improvements along the way means that your product doesn't need to be perfect from day one. This is true for every kind of business. This book is particularly focused on creating a physical product to sell online, but the principles are just as relevant to selling a service, a purely online concept, a retail store or any other kind of business. And besides, whatever type of business you start, it is definitely going to need an online component nowadays. At this point, it's also worth being clear for your own sake whether the business you hope to start as part of this project is one that you want to become your full-time career, a lifestyle business on the side or something else. Of course, the expectations you have for this business will have an impact on which ideas are viable and which are not, based on the amount of time you have available to grow them. Inspiration. You may already have picked up this book with an idea in your mind, maybe you even have a few jostling with each other in your head. At whatever stage you find yourself, you can never have enough inspiration. It is undoubtedly a good idea to spend some time researching what other entrepreneurs are up to, what exciting new businesses are getting good traction in other countries and which trends are opening up vast new areas of opportunity. If you are interested in a particular topic, let's say food, probably the easiest way to come up with ideas is just to Google this year's food trends. Check out the biggest blogs on that topic and it'll soon become apparent what's hot and what's not. It's a good practice to keep yourself abreast of the startup scene around the world, and you can do this really easily by reading mainstream blogs and magazines such as The Next Web, TechCrunch, Fast Company, Wired, Springwise, Trend Spotting, Cool Hunting, and PSFK. I also like to know what cool new food brands are starting up, and the Dial line, Lovely Package, and, in the UK, The Drum and sometimes The Grocer are good places to look for clues as to what's hot right now. To stay up to date with what's happening in the world of startups, I check on the websites of various incubators and accelerators, places where entrepreneurs are given funding, office space and mentoring to get their high-growth companies off to a flying start. Some of the leading ones to check out are Y Combinator, Wera, Seedcamp, Techstars, Longbox, Dream IT Ventures, Seed Rocket, Alpha Lab, PutUp Labs, Capital Factory, 500 Startups, Startup Bootcamp and dozens of others. They usually list all of the companies that they have invested in, which gives you a sense of which ideas investors are excited by and which markets might prove to be fertile spaces for you to grow your business. Even though you may not have any plans to raise investment for your business, it's helpful to understand what the smart money is thinking. By keeping your finger on the pulse, you'll not only find ideas from other countries that you can simply adapt for your own market, but also the good ideas you come across will help to spark original ideas of your own. You might unearth a business model that you think could work for another product, for example, your interests. To me, a perhaps glaringly obvious way to start looking for ideas is to write a list of all the things you are interested in, everything that you think is exciting and fun to do. By starting a business in a field that you're already passionate about, you'd be amazed at how much useful information you've absorbed about that topic already. Having some background knowledge will be extremely valuable, since the best way to come up with a good idea is to come up with something that you can honestly say you'd buy yourself. If you don't think you'd buy it, it is patronizing to think any customer out there would buy it either. They're just as smart as you. As well as being interested in a topic, it helps if you have some kind of ability in that field. Of course, there's nobody stopping you from learning a whole new skill if your dream is to do something totally out of your comfort zone, but that takes time. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out what you're good at. Quite often it's only a small part of what you do in your work. Our days are typically made up of a few things we're great at and lots of things we're just okay at. Everyone has different abilities, and a good way to reflect on what yours are is to consider the things you find easy but that people around you think are difficult. In my case, I wrote a pretty long and random list of things that, off the top of my head, I thought were cool or that I am passionate about. Startups, camp Irvins, road trips, vegan food, animal rights, travel, comedy, cookbooks, food trucks, ice cream vans, tiny houses, simple living, growing vegetables, my dog, learning languages, self-improvement, the elderly, travel, writing, life hacks, productivity apps, design, crafts, making things, licorice, inventors, simple electronics, breakfast, children's books, documentaries, chocolate, tea, coffee, porridge, adventure, travel. From that list, I picked out a few that I was particularly passionate about or interested in and wrote down what it was that, in a nutshell, made me interested in the first place. These were topics that I had a gut feeling would have some potential for a business, given that they are niche interests that people are willing to spend a lot of money on. Articulating why I like them in this way may seem a little strange, but it's a good way of getting to the heart of what's special about these topics, the reason why I care about them. Vegan food. I feel strongly about animal cruelty and want to eat healthily. Adventure travel. I love having authentic experiences in foreign countries. Ice cream vans. I love when they stop on our street. They seem to me to be a timeless embodiment of fun and simple pleasure. Porridge. I like a wholesome breakfast at the start of the day and like to pimp my oats with fruit, chocolate, nuts, and seeds. Scribble down your own ideas in a notebook. Problems. A perfect place to start in coming up with an idea is to identify the problems with your chosen themes. If you are having those problems, no doubt other people are too, and if you can honestly say you would be willing to pay money to solve those problems, the chances are you're not alone. Vegetarian food. Poor selection of vegetarian/vegan food in supermarkets, lack of exciting recipes, can become boring over time. Don't know many other vegetarians/vegans. Adventure travel. Can take a lot of time to research where to go. Unable to speak foreign languages, guidebooks only offer the sites. Locals try to rip you off. Ice cream vans. Hard to find an ice cream van when you want one. They don't have anything to do when it's not sunny. The quality is usually pretty bad. No dairy-free or healthier options. Porridge. Supermarket oats are boringly plain. Branded oats are frighteningly full of sugar. Don't usually have time to pimp my porridge. Scribble down your own ideas in a notebook. Business models. With a long list of problems, we now have somewhere to aim our creative energy. But, rather than just coming up with solutions for these problems out of the blue, it is best if we try to come up with them in conjunction with a business model that might make our solution a profitable one. Coming up with a solution to a problem is one thing, coming up with a business is something else entirely. Attaching your solution to a business model is what makes the difference. There are hundreds of different business models you can employ. Below are a few, but you will have a list of your own based on which ones you think have the most potential. Advertising. If you can create a site, a magazine, or an app that draws enough traffic, you can generate revenue using the likes of Google AdSense, earning a few pennies every time one of your visitors clicks on an advertiser's link. The more targeted your site is to a particular segment, the more valuable the ad space will be. Some topics will be more valuable to advertisers: finance, gambling, utilities, mobile phone companies, and other big-ticket items will pay well for clicks. Agency. If you have good connections within a particular field, you can create a site that lists all of the experts whom you have access to for clients to book. You could start an agency for DJs, medical lecturers, chefs, or cocktail waiters for parties. Affiliate. By linking to companies that offer products and services relevant to your users, you can earn a commission on any money they spend with those stores. This model works especially well if, for example, you create content about holidays or financial products. The commissions can be significant. Concierge. Some things are just so messy and complicated that people are willing to pay someone in the know to deal with them. This works especially well for travel, for private parties, or for household maintenance. Daily deals. There has been a massive proliferation of Groupon-type sites. Over the past few years, very few of them making any money. However, perhaps if you can apply the model to your own particular niche and build up a large enough database of email subscribers, you could build a business. Digital downloads. If you can create a digital product, for example, a book, an educational course, music, film, software, or font, you can sell it as a digital download either on your own site or through Amazon, Apple, and other places, and deliver it to your customers with no cost. Once you've done the work of creating it, you're making 100% profit on every sale. Door to door. I couldn't write this section without mentioning the business model that gave me my own start in business. There's absolutely nothing stopping you from knocking on doors, offering your product directly to your target consumers. Although this is a very grassroots way of doing things, the cost of getting started is very low and the market feedback couldn't be any more direct. Around the world, there are some huge companies that started with a lone entrepreneur walking up and down streets plying their wares to anyone who would listen. Drop shipping. This is where you set up an online store and, rather than holding stock yourself, just send an order to the manufacturer, who ships it straight to your customer. You take a cut of what the customer paid you before paying the manufacturer the trade price of the item. E-commerce. Probably the simplest business model is to source or make a product yourself and then sell it online through your site. Freemium. One of the most popular models on the internet is to offer a basic version of your service for free, all the time encouraging customers to upgrade to a premium version that contains extra benefits. Live events. A site can be a great way to sign up customers for real-world events, such as cupcake decorating classes, secret dinners in your own home, or puppy training classes. Manufacturing. Good old-fashioned making stuff. I got my start by making a product in my parents' kitchen, and there's nothing to say that you couldn't do the same. Perhaps you can make something by hand yourself, then one day you can graduate to factory production. Marketplace. It is extremely hard to build a successful marketplace, such as eBay or Airbnb, because you need to attract a critical mass of both buyers and sellers. However, that's not to say there aren't opportunities to create marketplaces for all kinds of things: dog walkers, cleaners, graphic designers, or private parking spaces, perhaps. Matchmaker. This is where you have lots of people looking for the same thing and your job is to put them together. The classic matchmaker is of course for dating, but it could apply equally for people who want a holiday companion, who want to swap homes over the holidays, or maybe want to join a book group in their area. Mobile apps. Build an iPhone/Android app and either give it away free, with an option inside the app to buy additional features or in-app advertising, or sell it for a one-off price or a monthly recurring payment. Party planning. A seemingly redundant business model in the digital age. The idea of direct selling your product person to person may seem a little unusual, but it can be extremely successful. Companies such as Tupperware pioneered the model of setting up parties where local reps, small-scale entrepreneurs in their own rights, would demonstrate and sell their products to their network. In recent times, this model has been reinvented to sell wine, beauty products, cookware, and all sorts of things. Pay what you want. Some people have experimented with letting consumers set their own price, which works especially well for things like digital products, where it doesn't matter if some people choose to pay only a few pennies. Peer-to-peer. A good peer-to-peer site is hard to create, because you are completely reliant on the willingness of complete strangers to share with each other. However, a good example is course note sharing sites, where you can pay a small fee, or upload work of your own, to access other people's academic essays. You could apply the same model to recipes, travel reviews or betting tips, for example. Pop-up store. If your dream is to open a retail store, an ideal way to test out the waters is by opening an outlet for a short period of time. There are online marketplaces that you can use to book quirky, high-footfall sites to enable you to offer your products for sale to the general public, sometimes even in high-footfall locations. Pre-sales, especially with product design, a lot of entrepreneurs are encouraging their customers to buy before anything is actually produced at all. This has been particularly popular with Kickstarter campaigns, where the business only manufactures their product if enough people commit to buying it, so they know they're onto a winner straight off the bat. Production on demand. It's really cool that you can design a product, promote it for sale online and only press go on production once someone places an order. This eliminates the risk of holding stock that maybe nobody will want to buy. If you're sourcing from the Far East, you'll need to make it clear to people how long they may have to wait before receiving their order. Razor and blades. If you can get customers to invest in a relatively inexpensive machine, like a printer or a coffee machine, that requires ongoing consumables, you potentially have a very profitable business in the long run. Retail product. You may well take the route of creating a product, finding a third-party manufacturer and using your site simply as a way to promote it to retailers and consumers, selling your brand through bricks-and-mortar retailers. Self-publishing. The internet has made it very easy for anyone to get their ideas out there. Some people have built a business on the back of publishing their own work, whether that's music, books, or podcasts. If you have a creative idea, you can usually find and learn how to use the tools you need relatively easily. Social network. Starting a social network probably isn't a great idea, given the fairly well-established companies that have achieved success in this arena. Having said this, you may well be able to create a network around a very specific interest. It is important to combine online with offline by having real-world events, supported by a website where people can sign up. Software as a service. Create a piece of software and, rather than selling it as a one-off purchase, charge users a monthly fee. Subscription. There are hundreds of subscription services popping up all the time and they're almost a cliché on the startup scene. Stick something in a box and charge a subscription. But the truth is that, if what you're offering is worthwhile, your customers will remain loyal, earning you a predictable income stream. The idea. The next step is to try to solve some of the problems you've identified using one or more of the business models that appeal to you. To give you an idea of how simple this can be, below are all of the ideas that I came up with. For some of the problems I identified, I simply couldn't come up with any solutions at all, which is probably always going to be the case. Vegan food. Problem. Poor selection of vegan food in supermarkets. Solutions. E-commerce site selling vegan food online. Subscription selling a monthly selection of vegan foods. Problem. Lack of exciting recipes. Solutions. Peer-to-peer vegan recipe sharing site Vegan Recipe App. Deliver a weekly subscription box of ingredients and recipes for vegan meals. Problems. Can become boring over time. Don't know many other vegans. Solutions. Live events. Meet UPS for Vegans with speakers and Food Social Network for Vegans. Vegan matchmaking dating site. Adventure travel. Problem. Can take a lot of time to research where to go. Solutions. Concierge service for unusual travel wishes, off the beaten path, travel packages agency. Problem. Unable to speak foreign languages. Solutions. Online foreign language tutor marketplace agency for local tour guides and interpreters. Problem. Guidebooks only offer the sites. Solution. An alternative travel guide and blog, with advertising and affiliates. Problem. Locals try to rip you off. Solution. Toughen up. Ice cream vans. Problem. Poor quality and unhealthy product. Solution. Pop-up healthy, luxury ice cream van concept. Problem. Hard to find an ice cream van when you want one. Solution. An app that orders an ice cream delivery. Porridge oats. Problem. Supermarket oats are boringly plain. Solution. A retail product, super luxury, pre-pimped oat mix tubs, with dried fruit, chocolate chips, seeds and spices. Problem. Branded oats are frighteningly full of sugar. Solution. A self-published recipe book, sharing my amazing porridge recipes. Problem. Don't usually have time to pimp my porridge. Solution. A pop-up store selling pimped-up porridge pots to take away. Scribble down your own ideas in a notebook. Having gone through this process, coming up with a range of concepts of variable quality, there are a couple on my list that sound like they could be feasible businesses. Most importantly, they sort of excite me and would be things I can imagine paying for myself. I like the idea of a vegan subscription box because I can very much see how I'd go about starting it. I do have a little experience with other subscription businesses, so that would certainly help. An online foreign language tutor marketplace also sounds like a terrific idea. I'd love to be able to hire a tutor by the hour to teach me Korean and help make my appearances on Korean home TV shopping a little more cohesive. I also love the idea of selling pre-mixed porridge oats. Maybe it's because it's breakfast time on my first day of this process, but I have a feeling that this could be a good product. The above are all topics I can imagine other people would be interested in, too. I can certainly picture lots of people searching on Google for these things, which is really important, as that will be an important source of customers for any online business. If people aren't searching for your product, it's hard to imagine they'll ever stumble across it. In my opinion, it's much easier to sell people something they want and are searching for than to try to sell them something they had no idea they wanted. So now for the task of deciding between these three potentially valid ideas. I don't know much about foreign language tuition and can't imagine how exactly I would build a marketplace site in just one weekend, so let's scrap that one. Food happens to be something of a passion of mine, so both of the other ideas seem a lot more appealing. To help decide between the two, I head for Google and type 2016 food trends. The first article that comes up lists, at number 1 spot no less, oatmeal, the American name for porridge. It seems that I could be onto something. Porridge, 1. Vegan subscription boxes, 0. I decide to take a look at the market size. I quickly search for UK porridge oats market size, and a grocer article puts it at £241 million and growing fast. Sounds promising. Finding similar stats on vegan foods is more challenging, so I try a different tack. I use a free service from Google called Google Trends, which allows you to see how the popularity of a given topic is changing over time. Sure looks like porridge is outpacing vegan food, even though they're both growing well. What really jumps out is how popular porridge is in January, when people are trying to get healthy. I decide to jump on my bicycle and do some quick market research. I head over to my local supermarket and check out what's going on in the world of oats. All kinds of things, as it turns out. Just as with every good idea, there are already people who are working on the idea of making premium porridge oats. The oats in the supermarket range from 60p for a 1 kilogram bag of supermarket own brand oats, all the way up to £4 for some fancy oats with healthy ingredients. Now, while I don't think it's important for my idea to be truly unique, I do think I'll need to do something sufficiently different to what's already there to be able to convince, in this case, the store owner to take the other products off the shelves and put mine there. My gut feeling when I look at the shelves is that there is an opportunity to do something more exciting there. Nobody has tried to create a particularly original brand, with a sense of humor. And none of the flavors that I can see are particularly exciting. On closer inspection, most of the premium brands have added sugar. Who knows if this idea will work or not, but I think it's worth a shot. My idea. After less than an hour of focused thinking and a bit of Googling, I've come up with an idea that I think might stand a chance. I'm going to take the idea of pimped up porridge oats and run with it. Is my idea any good? Let's be honest here, the idea that you have just come up with in an hour could well stink and you're just too sleepy to tell at this time in the morning. So I've come up with a quick checklist to help you decide whether your idea is worth trying or not. A lot of people spend years agonizing over whether or not their idea is good, so hopefully this makes it easier to figure out. Basically, if your idea doesn't pass this test, go back to step 1 and come up with something else. Don't be precious about your ideas, they're free. If your first one doesn't look promising, don't hold on to it as if it were a baby, just throw it away and come up with something else. You've just seen how quickly you can come up with new ideas if you put your mind to it. Checklist of what makes a good idea. Are you interested in this product? Would you buy this product? Honestly, would you? Do you know enough about this kind of business to stand a chance? Are enough other people as interested in this as you are to make a business? Is there a compelling story about why you are starting this business? Can you conceivably put a product into the world in 48 hours' time? Is the competition sufficiently rubbish that you think you can do better? Does it pass the grandma test? So, let's put my pimped up porridge oats idea to the test. Are you interested in this product? Yes, I eat it as often as I can be bothered to make it. I'm also interested in healthy food in general, and there's something exciting about making a traditional food like porridge modern and fun. It's really important to work on something you find interesting. I can't stress this point enough. If all that excites you about it is the thought that it might make you some dough, not only is that a bit too Donald Trump for my taste, it's also a bad strategy. The thing is, starting a business is really tough. You'll face all kinds of challenges that at the moment you can't quite picture. Only if you're working on a project that interests you will you be able to keep plowing on in the face of those challenges. You do your best work when you're working on something that excites you, so it makes good business sense to start one doing something you love. Would you buy this product? Honestly, would you? Yes, I would, so long as it tastes great. I'm usually too lazy to make porridge at all, but if there were a natural mix that has lots of different ingredients in it, I'd buy this rather than have to make it myself. A lot of entrepreneurs rely on the false hope that their potential customers are stupid, that they'll fall for some kind of trick or be willing to pay over the odds for a product that they could happily buy from the supermarket for much less. Consumers are incredibly tough, way more savvy than you might hope, and they have absolutely no regard for your feelings or dreams. If you wouldn't honestly buy your product yourself, knowing everything that you do about how it's made and what the alternatives to it are, then you certainly shouldn't expect anyone else to want to buy it. You absolutely have to be your harshest critic on this one. Do you know enough about this kind of business to stand a chance? Yes, in my case I probably have learned a few things about this particular business. I am no expert in oats specifically, so there could well be big gaps in my knowledge, but I do know lots about starting a food brand. Now, at this point you might protest, hey, you're starting a business doing something you already understand. You've started a food business before, so isn't this cheating? Well, here's the thing. My advice to you also would be to do something you have experience of. Are enough other people as interested in this as you are to make a business? Yes, I know for a fact that oats are a big business. Breakfast cereal is huge. Are there enough people like me who would pay a premium for luxury porridge oats with added healthy ingredients? That remains to be proven, but my gut tells me so. Now there's a temptation when coming up with ideas to come up with something so niche that only a few people will care about it. Try to avoid those ideas. Sure, they might pass questions 1 and 2 with flying colors, but that doesn't mean they should be turned into a business. I like ideas that focus on mainstream product categories, or indeed a niche within those categories. I'm much less enthusiastic about ideas that solve problems that aren't really problems at all. Some business books will tell you that you need to know what the size of the market is. I've seen plenty of entrepreneurs argue over whether the market for their type of product is £100 million or £200 million. In my book, so long as you choose something that is in a massive market, it doesn't really matter precisely how big it is. Is there a compelling story about why you are starting this business? Yes, the idea of selling oats fits nicely with my jam selling background. Not only that, but oats are very healthy, which fits nicely with the values of Super Jam. Being from Scotland, there's also a good link and, aside from all of that, I think there's something fun about a young guy trying to make something old-fashioned like oats into something fun. You might be wondering why it's important to have a story. What if I don't want to get publicity for my idea? Well, having a story isn't just about getting into the papers, It's about having a compelling reason for why your customers should listen to you instead of the competition. What is it that makes you so special? I can assure you that if you're working on something that truly interests you, that you truly would buy yourself, then probably there is a story in there. Maybe the story is about why you're so passionate about this, what the experience was that provoked you to think of this idea, or any number of other things. Later in the book we'll talk about how to tell your story, but for now it's a good idea to ask yourself whether you feel this idea authentically fits with you. Imagine someone asking, "Why did you start this business?" And if it feels as though there's an authentic reason, then it's all good. If it feels that this idea doesn't actually fit with your values or your background, then maybe other people will see that too, and it'll hinder your chances of success. Can you conceivably put a product into the world in 48 hours time? Yes, I can totally imagine that if I put my mind to it I can use some of my home porridge recipes to create a range of, say, 3 mixes. I can get some off-the-shelf packaging, create a simple brand and find somewhere to sell the first few dozen 2 days from now. There's no golden rule that says you have to start a business within 2 days, and, indeed, this process may well take you a little longer. That's okay. But if your idea is so complicated that you can't see how you would make a basic version of it within a short space of time, then maybe it's also too complicated for you to get around to starting. The point isn't to create the absolute perfect version of your idea. It's to create a simple but good version, something that you can get onto the market and then make changes to it as you learn what people really want. If it seems impossible to start something quickly, maybe think of ways to simplify the first version of your product. For instance, if your idea is to start a restaurant, why not run a pop-up supper club in your house? Or rent a food truck to test out your recipes and build a following before making the leap to bricks and mortar. If your idea is to sell your product to a big retailer, maybe try selling it at a market first. Or if you want to create an online service, try using off-the-shelf software to get a basic version of your idea to market, learning what people really want and then building something from scratch afterwards, safe in the knowledge that what you are spending thousands to build is exactly what people want. Is the competition sufficiently rubbish that you think you can do better? Without insulting any of them, I do think I could do something better at the premium end of the market. There are a couple of innovative startups with good packaging and products that suit their particular target market well. There are also some massive players, like PepsiCo's Quaker Oats, swimming in the same pond. Thankfully, though, it is a big pond and there's space for a brand with a sense of fun to swim alongside them. As you can see, I have chosen a market where there is lots of competition. There are some huge companies. I even have friends who sell products in this market, and I come across new breakfast cereal startups all the time, so I know it's not an open field. Surely this goes against everything we're taught? That you have to go to a place where there are no big companies to compete against? Well, yes, it would be wonderful if there were markets that don't have any competition, but that just isn't reality. If you can, however, find a market that is dominated by brands that are big but not lovable, that's a great place to go. Being a small player, a challenger, a David vs. Goliath, is your golden ticket against these monolithic corporations that nobody really likes. Big companies are a little slow to react to new players, partly out of complacency but also because it takes them longer to do things. It certainly takes a big company more than 48 hours to launch a new product. They also often don't have an authentic story like you do, so you should always use your authenticity and your story as your magic weapon. So, even though there is competition in the oat world, I don't see many brands that have a cult following. There are no superstars. Because of this, I think the competition is crappy enough that I might just stand a chance. If you are not quite so fortunate and instead find yourself trying to compete against superstars, that's when you need to reconsider your idea. If your plan is to go head to head with Amazon or Apple or with a well-funded, beautifully designed, hard-working startup, then I'd try something else. Life's too short to try to compete with smart companies when there's plenty of ordinary, and even dumb, companies you can compete against instead. Does it pass the grandma test? At this point, I'd like to introduce you to one of the most important tests you can do on a business concept, the grandma test. No matter how high-tech or complicated your innovation is, no matter how much detail you've had to go into to solve it, if you can't explain it to your grandma, or any grandma for that matter, you haven't thought it through enough. Now, this isn't to say that grandmas aren't smart, quite the contrary. Mine is very smart indeed. She understands what Google is, she doesn't understand how it works, and neither do most people, but she understands what it does and why you'd want to use it. If I can successfully sell my grandma on the idea of Google Search, one of the most high-tech products on the planet, you'd better be able to sell her on yours, because I'm guessing it's something less groundbreaking. So, it's time to run the grandma test on my porridge idea. Over a quick cuppa, I casually pitch my idea to her. I talk about how I'm working on launching a new product after her jam recipe went down so well. You haven't come here to steal my other recipes, have you? She jokes. No, don't worry, there's no need to call your intellectual property lawyer, I joke. But I would love to know what you think of my new idea. I explain that I've figured that porridge seemed like a good place to start. I want to make oats more exciting for people who, maybe, find the traditional Scottish way of eating them with just a pinch of salt a little, boring. It turns out that she actually puts banana in her porridge, so she's totally into the idea of pimping her oats. I explain that I'm going to sell pre-mixed packs of oats with dried fruit, nuts, seeds, chocolate chips, that sort of thing. Sounds lovely. We're on. Personalized bath salts. I wanted to ask him for a few tips that might help generate some great ideas. On whether or not your idea needs to be truly unique, Andy reassures me that there is a huge range of possibilities. He suggests that actually most businesses compete on execution rather than pure originality, so you shouldn't really worry about doing something completely new. If you're struggling to come up with an idea at all, he suggests that you work on a topic you already know something about and that you should be fairly regimented about your idea generation. Just force yourself to come up with a large number of ideas, ideally with the help of other people, family, or friends perhaps, and be willing to scrap the ones that are rubbish. Through this process, you'll uncover some gems more easily than trying to tease out that single eureka moment. Thankfully, like myself, Andy is a fan of just getting your product to market rather than agonizing over whether or not it's perfect. How to validate whether or not your idea is any good is something we talk about a lot, and, particularly in the internet world, there's so much enthusiasm for testing and minimum viable products. But, I think, particularly with consumer products, that it's so hard to get any sense of what will work, until it's real. He also believes in not keeping your ideas to yourself. Share your idea with anyone who'll listen, it's far more likely to propagate or mutate in an interesting direction. There's just so many more ideas to talk about than there are people to implement them. You can listen to the full interview on the 48-Hour Startup podcast show at 48hourstartup.org.